Hello and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Liz, Disability Policy for All. Today I'm really excited to be talking to one of my friends who is the director of the Indiana UCEDD. UCEDD. But today I'll be talking to him in his role as the chair of the Advisory Committee on Inclusive Competitive Employment for People with Disabilities. So welcome, David.
Well, thanks, Liz, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on Tuesdays with Liz.
The first question I have is, what was the purpose of this committee?
Well, Liz, the committee was created in the 2014 Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that was signed by President Obama, I believe, in June of 2014. And in that legislation, this advisory committee was created and given an assignment. And in the statute, there are ostensibly 3 charges to the committee. The committee is to advise the Secretary on ways to increase competitive integrated employment for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and people with other significant disabilities, on the use of 14C certificate programs, which is the use of subminimum wages in sheltered workshops, and number 3, advise regarding the monitoring and use of such certificates. So that's the 3 charges that are specifically named in the legislation. The first one, of course, is to build competitive integrated employment across the nation, and the other 2 to deal with certificate programs such as 14C, which allows employers to pay subminimum wage.
Thank you. The next question is, can you explain to the viewers about the recent report that came out of the advisory committee that you just talked about?
I would love to, because that's a very new, fresh report that just was issued on September 15th of this year. The committee was required to provide an interim report by September 15th of this year. We've already had 5 meetings of the committee since January of 2015. And in this report, we lay out preliminary recommendations that are under discussion by the committee. Now, while the committee has met either face-to-face or virtually by webinar 5 times, we also have 4 subcommittees. And these 4 subcommittees have been doing a great deal of work to try to create discussion in order to create the preliminary recommendations that are described in that report, and now to move forward from there for the next year. The 4 subcommittees, one is called the Committee on Complexity of Implementation of Competitive Integrated Employment, which means a lot of the federal issues that are invoked in implementing employment. Number 2, a Local and State Capacity Committee that speaks to the building up of programs and the methodology to deliver employment. A 3rd on transition from school to careers, and a 4th on what's called marketplace dynamics, which is both business and the federal contracting rules.
Thank you. I'm really excited that the committee is talking about careers rather than jobs, because I think that people are so limited about just talking about jobs rather than having a career that you and I might have. The next question is, now that the report is out, what is the future of this committee?
Well, the future of the committee is one more year. We are required in the statute to deliver a final report with recommendations on September 15th of 2016. So we have 1 year, or most of the year, to move from our preliminary recommendations that are under discussion to final recommendations to both the Secretary of Labor and to Congress. And we already have a lot to work with. There are more than 100 preliminary recommendations that are under discussion right now. A number of them, as you might expect, invoke funding policy and what will it take to align funding policy with competitive integrated employment as it is defined. Second, we have a series of ideas we're talking about that specifically relate to individuals with disabilities and families about engagement, about the need to increase awareness and increase expectations, and to address, to the extent that we can, recommendations related to fear of loss of benefits and to do a better job of benefits management. Another area, specifically around transition, is looking at ways to increase the likelihood that students have job experiences while they're still in school, well before they actually leave school, and to consider what might be better working relationships between the Medicaid system of long-term supports with education as students are exiting schools. There are a number of ideas regarding the business community that are exciting to consider as well for engaging employers and employer leadership. And then, of course, the implementation, training, and technical assistance that will be required in communities and in states across the country in all of these areas. It's also interesting that the committee is comprised of 25 people. There are 17 citizen members as well as 8 government representatives.
Thank you. One other question that I just thought about is, I've been reading the report online, and the report is in language that myself or my friends might not be able to understand. So how would people get that information if they don't listen to Tuesdays with Liz?
Well, we'll have to do a better job of writing the final report as well. But I think, number one, I think all of the committee members would be happy to engage in a conversation with people that have questions or find it a little difficult to understand. Writing by committee is always an interesting task.
Thank you. Is there anything that I missed or that you would like to talk about?
Well, one thing I would like to say is that as a part of a public process like this, public input is extremely important. And the meetings are all public meetings. And the information about the work of the committee, all of the presentations that have been made to the committee, the interim report, of course, is all public and can be found on the Department of Labor website. If people are interested in that, go to the Office of Disability Employment Policy website, and you'll see a place to connect to the link for the advisory committee. So I think it would be a great idea if people wanted to see the detail of how this is proceeding. And number two, and very important, is to consider giving public input. This is possible at the meetings. People can sign up to provide testimony to the committee at the public meetings. I think that there's information available on the website right now about a meeting we have coming up on October 13th and 14th and 15th in Washington, D.C. And there's also an email address that people can leave comments about our work or things that are of important to people around the country. And that email address is Integrated Competitive Employment at dol.gov. Integrated competitive employment at dol.gov. And that public input is extremely important.
Thank you. And thank you. And if you have any questions about this or any other policy issues, please go to the UCEDD webpage and look for this week's In Brief. And if you have any questions about this issue of Tuesdays with Liz, please leave them in the space below. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks,
Okay, we'll see you soon, Liz. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.